And so when people say in America, oh, you can't take your children to school if they haven't been vaccinated, what about the danger to my children? I say, what about the danger of your vaccinated child to mine? Far greater, darling. And so we're being undermined in all these different ways. And of course, again, through programming, people don't vaccinate their children because they want to harm them. They vaccinate them because they have been given the information, the false reality, that it's good for them. You know, we've just changed the law. It's similar in America. We're just changing the law that in April, just a little while from now, before the age of 18 months to 2 years, babies in this country will have had 25 vaccinations. I mean, the immune system's going to come out with his hands up, isn't it? It's going to say, what is going on here? You know, and so, again, we're being attacked in that way from a very early age to undermine our true magnificence and our true power. And we need to take power back and say, sorry, I'm not immunizing my child because I've looked at the information. I can see what the situation is. I'm not doing it. Oh, well, you can't take it. Well, I'm not taking my child to school then. It's not happening. Standing up for it instead of saying, "Oh, well, I better do it then because it's simpler that way." Well, it's going for the simple way, going for the least line of resistance. Oh, we better do it. That's got us into this mess. We have to stand up and say, enough. There's a line in the sand. Not doing it anymore. And enough of us do it. It all comes down because we're holding it together by our acquiescence.
Let's go to our wild card line. You're on the line with David Icke. Hi there.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
Hi, this is Steve from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm the guy who remembers before he was born. The reason I'm calling is I have a quick question for David and a short story if there's time. Now, my question is, I'm of the understanding that the human brain operates at a frequency of 72 to 90 megahertz, and interestingly enough, the FM band begins at 87.5 megahertz. And so, David, my question to you is it possible that these FM radio frequencies are hindering our ability to maximize our potential?
Well, I mean, I don't know the frequencies of that specific case, but as a rule, anything, and really, you know, we have this phrase, the elephant in the living room, right? Well, there are so many elephants in the living room, and we're saying, I can't see anything. Where is it? Let's just take this on a real basic level. If you have a frequency of a radio station and there is some electrical equipment that is broadcasting on a similar frequency, what do you get on the radio? You get interference. You know, this is what happens. So anything that is operating within the frequency band of human brainwave activity has got to be interfering or have potential to interfere with the balance and the power of that brainwave activity. It has to. I mean, it's like, you know, there's a herd of elephants in the living room here now on this one. And it's in the simple, when you get down to the simple, because what they do is they want to put complexity to hide the simple truth. And the simple truth is, of course, anything on the brainwave frequency is going to affect brainwave frequencies. Dead simple, absolutely.
Let's go west of the Rockies. You're on Coast to Coast with David Icke. Hi there.
Hey, George, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
This is Tony calling from Mesa, Arizona. Hey, David, you are one of my favorite guests. This is actually probably the best show, George, you've had. And people really need to listen up to what you got to say because everything you've talked about tonight is absolutely true. And I wanted to see if you can get into the Luciferian aspect of this whole control thing that the government's got going. Is there a Luciferian aspect to it?
You mean the satanic aspect to it?
Absolutely. I mean, I personally believe this is being set up for Lucifer to come in, you know, the next couple of years, the whole control thing.
Yeah, well, one of the things I've been talking about and writing about over the years, which has got me a lot of ridicule, but, you know, who cares? I mean, they ridiculed those that said the earth was round once, is the fact that what we see as the people in power, even those with the real power in the five-sense reality that you never see behind the scenes, They are all vehicles for a force that is actually beyond this dimension or reality that we call the physical world. You know, when people look through their eyes and it appears that we're seeing everything in the space we're looking at. No. We're seeing a tiny, tiny frequency range, which is a visible light. And that is a fraction even of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is itself a tiny, tiny fraction of what is projected to exist in the universe in terms of matter mass. So we, as one writer said, are basically blind. And in the same space that we are appearing to see this reality is infinite worlds, infinite dimensions of life, which are interpenetrating the same space that we are perceiving. Just like radio stations and television stations broadcasting to the same space occupy the same space that my body is occupying now, but I can't see them, they can't see each other. I can only access them if I get a television or a radio and tune to that frequency. Then I get them. If I'm on Radio 1, I get Radio 1. If I move to Radio 2, I now get Radio 2. But Radio 1 hasn't ceased to broadcast, ceased to exist just because I've moved from it. It's just that I'm not tuned to it anymore. And when we come into this physical world and through this physical form we call the body, we lock in, tune in like a radio to a certain frequency band, and therefore that becomes our apparent reality. But beyond that, are other realities, and in frequencies very close to this one, and able to some extent to interact with it, is a force that people use different names for: satanic forces, Luciferian forces that are so deeply, deeply imbalanced, they've lost all sense of love, empathy, light, however you want to describe it.
We'll be back in a moment. David, hold on. We got to take this break.
No, I was just going to finish off, George, by saying that these deeply, deeply imbalanced forces that are operating in a frequency range just outside of the human five sense range, they're the forces that the, quote, Satanists and such people interact with when they're doing their rituals. You know, I'm sure, I know you've talked about on the show Bohemian Grove, in Northern California, where elite go and do their funny rituals. But all around the world, in my research over the last 1.5 decades, I keep coming up with this whole recurring theme as I document my books of the elite, those in power, the people we see on CNN and the news every day, taking part in these satanic, often human sacrifice rituals. And what they're doing is they're interacting with the forces that actually possess them. I mean, this age-old thing about possession, it's true. These forces can possess the mental, emotional, or lack of emotional faculties of these people, and in effect, these people just become vehicles for them. And if you look in the eyes of people like Tony Blair, you can see it. You can see, and I tell you what. Just a quick story. I had an experience a few years ago now, actually before I got into any of this stuff, George, with a former Prime Minister of Britain called Ted Heath. He was Prime Minister from 1970 to 74, and he was the man that took us into what is now the European Union. And he was on a television show that I was on. He'd been on it before, and he was in the makeup room having makeup taken off, and I was led in the makeup room to have it put on to go into the studio to do the interview, and I was left alone with him. And I didn't see him when I first went in. I thought it was an empty room. Yeah. And I sat in the chair, and I turned to my right, and I saw him sitting there. He was looking at the mirror, and I said, "Hello, mate. How are you doing? Nice to meet you." I never met him before. And he turned his head, and like I say, I was not into any of this stuff. But he turned his head, not his body, and he very slowly, and he looked at me. And he never said a word at any point in the entire interchange. His eyes then moved and to the top of my head. Not his face did move, just his eyes. And then his eyes went slowly down my body to my feet, and then went back again to the top of my head, and then he turned and looked at the mirror. It was like he was scanning me. That's all I can describe. The point is, though, that while he was doing this and I looked into his eyes,